afternoon. Welcome everyone for coming out on a Saturday afternoon on a panel discussion on understanding of the mind and mental health. Before we go further, I would like to invite Elder Beverly Keeshig-Soonias to give us a treaty acknowledgement and explain us, or I'm requesting her to explain us why we do the treaty acknowledgement also. I would like to invite Emily Jasper and Judi to please come forward so we can present her we honor her. Elder, please. Joan is here to join. Could you please come forward? Judi, please.
What are you looking at? Sunny's phone. Not here.
They gave me tobacco. That's what is in this package. Because in my culture, I'm an Indigenous woman from Canada. I'm Anishinaabe. When you meet a knowledge keeper or an elder, when you start your relationship with them, you give them tobacco. Because it is a very important plant in our culture. The tobacco plant has grown here for many, many, many generations. It was here before human beings were here in North America. And so when people first meet an elder and they want to show respect, or they are asking a question, or they want to have teachings, start that relationship in a good way, they give tobacco. So that is what this is, just if you were wondering. So I don't immediately go out in the parking lot and roll a cigarette and smoke it. That's not what it's for. I will take it and I will go out where there are no people walking or people will not trample on it, and I will offer it up and say prayers for all of you, if you don't mind people praying for you. And that is what happens with the tobacco. And also it means that now we are in a good relationship. We are beginning, right? Relationships have many stages, right? And if any of you remember when you were young and you fell in love, there were many different stages. One, you were lost in a sea of love and couldn't think straight, but there were other stages in relationships too. So I think one of the things that they have asked me, can you still hear? That has been asked is to talk about land acknowledgement. What is important to me as an Indigenous woman? So Beverly Keeshig-Soonias Ndeshnakas. Niashin nigming dongba. Ajachak ndotem. I'm telling you that my name from my ancestors is Keeshig, which means like sky or heaven, and Soonias, which means like little sparkles of light that would come off like a silver medal. And so some people think it means money, because coins, when we met Europeans, they weren't carrying ATM cards or visas, they were carrying these coins, so we called that money. So I was telling you that about me, but I'm also telling you where I come from and the land. In my language, or my husband's language, when we ask somebody, where are you from? We don't say, what's your address, or what's the longitude, latitude. We ask them, Tante o Chikia, where is your umbilical cord attached to? Where from the land are you attached? Because we believe that land, in English, is a dead, when you say it in English, you say it, the earth, it is, brown right now. It has snow on it. But in my language, it's not binary. We don't say he or she. We say all of them, and we say something. If I say beta, I'm saying he brings it, she brings it, it brings it. I'm talking that something with the spirit is bringing something to me. And the same thing with the land. The land has spirit. She gifts us all with life. She goes through many stages. Right now, she's kind of in a sleepy stage for us and letting the animals and the plants rest. And maybe that's a lesson to us. In all our hard work, we need to rest once in a while. And then in the spring, she will come to life. And what looks like to many new Canadians, I'm sure they come in the winter and think, oh, what have we done? This place looks dead. But then in the spring, all the green comes out and they're reassured there's new life present. So when we talk about land acknowledgement, we don't want you just to say, oh, Beverly's people used to live here, or the Cree people used to live here, so we have to say it, because we don't want them to feel bad that we're here. But that's not what we mean. We mean that a land acknowledgement is the very land you are all in now. The land that is going to give you life, that's going to strengthen your spirits, that's going to make you feel welcome, that's going to make you feel at home. That's why we want to acknowledge the land. If I say it is the land of the Ojibwe, or the land of the Cree, or the land of the Nakota, I'm not saying it belongs to us. I'm saying that out of that land, we became Cree people, we became Ojibwe people, we became Nakota people. Just like you all are becoming the people, and generations from now, you will be the people of Turtle Island, much like my tribe has become since time immemorial. So that is why we do land acknowledgement, to remind all of us that the land looks after us, and we look after the land. We have a relationship with her because she has spirit. Anything that has spirit, we can have relationship with. So that means that we are interdependent. We will help the land, she will help us. And if we stop doing so, it will be to our peril. And when we talk about the land, we don't mean just like geography or topography or cartography, making maps. We don't just mean that, or what kind of rocks happen to be around us. We're talking about all the life that comes out of land. Plants, animals, fish, birds, all of those things, that is of the land, just like us. The land made human beings like us, and the land makes all these plants and animals and water and the rocks and the sacred spaces that are available to us, to remember that we are not just a bunch of plasma running around, a bunch of cells, that we are spiritual beings. So we do land acknowledgement to remind us we have a relationship with the land, to remind us to seek that relationship and understand it better, to maintain it, and to celebrate it. And because we are in relationship with the land, we're in relationship with all the things that land has nurtures, right? So it is our ethical duty, for me as an Indigenous person, to get to know all of you, to get to treasure all of you, to get to celebrate my relationship with all of you. That all comes out from land acknowledgement, and the plants and the earth have taught us how to get along. And so hopefully we will be humble and we will do the same. So I acknowledge that I am on the land of my ancestors, the Anishinaabe, Nehiowak, Nakota, Blackfoot people, many of the tribes, the Métis people. But I also acknowledge that you too are here on this land, just like seeds came from the heavens to plant these plants like tobacco and sweetgrass and all these plants that grow here. So today in my acknowledgement, I thank the Creator that you are here and that you will form a relationship with this land and with all the people on this land who've come from many different tribes, from many different parts of the world, many different tribes. So in this land acknowledgement, I'm grateful to the Creator for you, and I'm grateful to the relationship that I know we are all striving to have in a good way. Hi, hi.
Thank you, Elder, for giving us a meaningful
much my
line
friends pay?
acknowledgement in explaining the importance of connecting with the earth. Before we
Thank you, Sunny. Good afternoon, guys. This is a message from Her Honor, the Honorable Salma Bekhani, AOE, BSc, LLD Honors, Lieutenant Governor of Alberta. As His Majesty the King's representative, I'm pleased to welcome everyone to the Psychology Month Community Seminar on Understanding of the Mind and the Health hosted by Infinity Safety Awareness. I invite you all to participate in learning more about the connections between mental health and our inner experience. This seminar is not only a wonderful opportunity to delve deeper into the topics around mental health such as grief, the winter blues, and imposter syndromes, but also a chance to learn strategies on how to manage mental health and discover new resources that can support you all. I offer my heartfelt thanks to the seminar leaders, volunteers, and supporters for your sustained dedication to advocating for and promoting healthy communities and for your commitment to destigmatizing mental health. Best wishes to all for a most enjoyable and illuminating experience. Thank you.
will be reading a message from the Premier of Alberta, Daniel Smith.
Thank you, Sunny. So it's my honor to bring a message from the Premier of Alberta. Pardon me. On behalf of the Government of Alberta, it is my pleasure to send greetings to everyone attending Understanding of the Mind and Mental Health as part of Psychology Month. Mental health is a vital part of every Albertan's overall well-being. Learning more about the challenge we or the people we care about may face can be an important part of supporting mental wellness. This event is a wonderful opportunity to shed light on some of the issues that can affect us as individuals and which we can have an impact on our communities. Thank you to Infinity Safety Awareness and the Psychologists Association of Alberta for creating a safe space for folks to learn more about mental health. Thank you as well to all the presenters for sharing your expertise. I appreciate your commitment to helping people lead healthier and happier lives. Best wishes for a productive and enlightening seminar. The Honorable Danielle Smith, Premier of Alberta. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I would like to acknowledge we have MLA Jasveer Dale with us. He has always acknowledged and always supported us, as well as the City Councillor Joanne. Right. What we are going to do, we will start the panel discussion now, and if the how is going to run is 3 phases. Phase 1, we will basically introduce each and every panelist. We have 5 distinguished panelists. They will basically tell us, and then we have a specific questions for them, and each has a PowerPoint presentation. Once that is phase 1 is done, phase 2, which is done, like a lengthy questions, then we will open for a form for all the questions and answers. Before that, we will be doing a token, like a thank you token to all the panelists, and that time we will invite Jasper and Joanne if they want to give input about the policies and procedures. Introduce us and what topic you will be talking about.
Before I do that, I'd like to pass on the mic here first.
I have been introduced as an Indigenous elder, but I also want you to know that I can be part of the panel because I have a law degree, and I also am a psychologist. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of Alberta. And I'm the chair of the Indigenous Peoples section of the Canadian Psychological Association. Thank you.
Elder, you have to accept my apologies because I was going through the list. My mistake. My apologies.
My name is Dr. Ganz Ferrance. I'm a registered psychologist. I'm also a peak performance and overwhelm specialist. What I like to tell people is, for the last 30 years or so, what I've actually done is help people make more money, have better sex, and live longer lives. So if anybody's interested in anything like that, you're at the right place. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Baljinder Sull and I go by Bal, and I'm a registered psychologist. I live just east of the city of Calgary in Chestermere, and I'm a private practitioner, and I specialize in grief and loss, and that'll be the topic that I will be discussing today. And I'll share this piece here right now because we have the time, and I went over my time for my presentation, so I'm going to take advantage of it here. This topic is very important to me. It's very deeply personal to me as well. I lost my brother 11.5 years ago to a sudden accident, and that informs a lot of my practice. It informs a lot of what I do as a person as well. So I'm really, really excited to be here today to share on the topic of grief and loss with all of you. Thank you.
Patricia.
Thank you, Sunil and Dr. Judi and everyone. My name is Patricia Pedraza Cruz. I'm original from Colombia. I have been here 17 years now, and I am registered provisional psychologist. And my topic today is very, very connected with especially my experience of being an immigrant and being a psychologist. So I'm going to talk about mental health for immigrants, and I'm going to give you the best I can with my reflections and experience with my private practice. I am coming from Calgary.
Now we have Chitwan Sohi. She's a psychologist student.
Hi, you took part of my introduction, but that's okay. So I'm a student in psychology at McEwen University, and today I'm going to be talking about imposter syndrome, as I'm sure a lot of students face those same issues, as well as probably everybody here who put themselves in any sort of uncomfortable position, like your microphone not working.
Yeah, and I'm Dr. Judi Malone. Happy Psychology Month, everyone.
Yay.
I'm born and raised in St. Bride's, Alberta, so rural northeastern Alberta. I've been a clinical and counseling psychologist now for 25 years this month. Not scans, but pretty much. And I'm very proud to be the CEO of the Psychologists Association of Alberta, where half of my job is supporting the amazing work of people like this in a profession that really makes a tremendous benefit. And my other half is really working on the psychological health and wellness for all Albertans. And I'm going to be giving some really a great range of basic tips to make us psychologically healthier and stronger, or to support the people we love and care about.
So now we are going to start the lengthy questions. So my first question is to Dr. Ganz. We are in Canada and Alberta, Alberta, Edmonton. In Edmonton, Alberta, we say we have 2 seasons, construction and winter. And everyone, especially not only the immigrants, anyone who is here, it impacts, the winter impact us, right? How winter season impact or affect our mental health, especially shorter days, cold temperatures, we just miss -60, less daylight, especially when we are working, the whole thing we have to readjust it, and how we can stay positive. Any special tips?
Okay, I'm gonna get down for a second. Okay, let me ask you this. How many people here love the winter? All right, 5 of you guys, all right. How many people love the warm? Okay, how many people are not putting up their hand no matter what? Okay. Yeah, they good, okay, right. Well, thank you for having me here. I'm Dr. Ganz Ferrance. How do I do this? Which way? This one? Oh, okay, I think I turned it off. Okay, there we go. So usually I talk about burnout, especially because it's a safety kind of setup. We know that the better we feel, the better we do. And if we feel burnt out, if we feel tired, if we're not in our best, we're not going to be as safe. But we're also not going to be as happy. We're We're not going to be as fulfilled. We're not going to be as productive when we're not in our best. So that's my whole thing. And my personal experience is I have been in these places where I've had to deal with depression or anxiety or burnout or different things. You know, I talked about being in the field of psychology for over 30 years. I've also been on the other side of the couch. I've been a client of my own psychologist for the last 30 years as well. I believe in buying what I sell, okay? I think that it's one of the best things that we can do to look after our well-being, provide, improve our productivity, but also really deal with our safety. Because, you know, especially if we're in a safety-sensitive situation, if we're not our best, if we haven't been sleeping, or we just had a fight with a spouse, or we're anxious or depressed, we are going to be more dangerous as well as less productive, okay? So although we're talking about safety, and you know, I usually deal with burnout, we're talking about winter blues this time, okay? So part of what I do is I need to have a conversation with you guys. Would that be okay?
Yes.
So I always ask this question and about 5 people answer. So the best way to learn something is to be active. The more you give, the more you get out, okay? So I'm gonna ask it again. How would it be if we had a conversation this afternoon? Would that be okay?
Yes.
Ah, much better, perfect, thank you. All right, so, and there's gonna be a little, not a test, but there's gonna be a little activity for you guys after. So anyway, one of the best things we can do is we can figure out, a lot of times people think of psychology as, oh, well, something's gotta be wrong, we've gotta be broken, we need to be fixed. But really, psychology is kind of understanding how we work in the mind and figuring out the best practices of happy, healthy, successful people, figuring out what that is, and then teaching that to other people. Because if we can do that, I believe that the best defense is a good offense. The best defense is good offense. When we're working on ourselves and we're feeling good, we're feeling happy, we're better protected from things like burnout, depression, anxiety, things like that, even the winter blues. So, this is, we've talked about who I am. So I've done a lot of stuff in the media over the last years because I really do think that we have a lot of stuff to share with people, that, you know, just little things that we can do can help people make big change in their lives and have them be much happier. I've also worked with these folks for a long time, the RCMP, a lot of law enforcement agencies, and these folks are under a lot of stress generally for their job. And so learned a lot from them to help pass on to the general public so that we can all learn how to do better in all the different areas of our lives. So, winter blues. How many people know what that is? How many people have heard that term before? Okay, good, thank you. Who's gonna be brave enough to say a definition? Who wants to shout out what they think it is? Ah, good crowd. Come on, be brave. Okay, thank you, right here.
Winter blues is sort of a depression because there's no sunlight and you feel...
Very good, very good. So winter blues, get back there.
Could it be like from the lack of vitamin D?
Sorry, a little louder.
Could it be from the lack of vitamin D, like the sunlight there?
So possibly lack of vitamin D because of the cold weather and the dark skies. Okay, right here, second table from the back, right there.
Isolation, we aren't out as much with each other.
Isolation, not connected, perfect, thank you, right at the back.
I can say, like, it's a seasonal affective disorder.
Okay, seasonal affective disorder, so what does that mean?
Like, because of the season, like, your mental health is affected, and it can, like, you're gonna get some sort of symptoms, or depending upon your system, like symptoms, like, you need to decide whether you need to see a doctor, like, to be a sort of or not.
Okay, so symptoms around the affect, around your feelings, right? So your emotional well-being because of the lack of light and the winter blues. Thank you for that. Right here at the front.
Actually, I was going to go along with that social isolation. I was thinking cabin fever.
Cabin fever. Cabin fever is actually the old term for this, right? So thank you. All good answers. Actually, for those of you who didn't answer, give these guys a hand because they were brave enough to answer. Thank you. Okay. So yes, all of that is true. So seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, or the winter blues, we are all biological systems, but especially us mammals, we're all affected by the amount of light we get. And there's some science behind it. I kind of say that the smart mammals, they sleep through the winter, right? They hibernate, right? Us dumb ones kind of try to go to work and do a bunch of other stuff, right? But it's the amount of sunlight we get. So it's kind of vitamin D, it's definitely part of like just isolation, but there's something physiological going on in our brains as well. So our brains are triggered to create serotonin. Serotonin is actually the happy chemical that a lot of the antidepressants work on and different things. That's a system that works on us being happy, feeling good, but then it turns to melatonin at night in the presence of darkness that helps us to sleep. So our brain is triggered to produce this chemical. As long as we have the basic building blocks in our diet, we can produce this chemical that keeps us up, okay? The sunlight actually helps us to create that chemical in our brain. The problem is, those of us who live this far north, you may have noticed that the days are shorter here, okay, in the winter. So we don't get as much sunlight, but even the sunlight that we do get, it's the wrong part of the spectrum. We need the blue part of the spectrum to actually stimulate your brain to create serotonin. So actually what I have, so when we talk about things we can do to help us feel better in the winter, I actually have this little light. I'm going to turn it on so you can see. So it has the blue part of the spectrum, and I typically use this myself. I use this probably about the middle of September till maybe March or April, okay? And 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes a day, wow, that's really bright, really does help us to create that little boost in my brain to make that serotonin so that I can have that lift and be able to function well. Because if we don't, then we have the symptoms of anxiety and depression. We're talking about insomnia, we can have little aches and pains, we can have reduced, high irritability, so like reduced capacity to manage stress. We get kind of down, and all these different things happen, right? So we don't want that. We want to be able to function well, both at work and at home. So there are other things that can also help us. Basic things, like structure. So structure is one of those things that really does help. Things like going to bed at the same time. Things like making your bed, having a routine. Now these things sound really simple, but some of the most simple things are the most powerful in terms of what we do and how we look after ourselves. So how many people made their bed this morning? Be honest. Okay, I don't know, 25% of you. Okay, so that's one of the quickest ways to do it, right? Is every day make your bed, because you create a stable, structured environment. You feel more structured inside as well. Okay, so having structure, working out, or any kind of routine that you like that is positive, you want to do that for yourself. One of the things that happened to us during COVID is that we had very little structure because everybody's like isolated and we didn't know what to do. We didn't have to go to work or couldn't go to work. So one of the things we really push people to do is create some structure in our lives, because we need that to feel sane. We need newness, but we also need familiarities, right? So structure is one of the first keys. The other thing is the 4 pillars. The 4 pillars of good health. So what they are is making sure we're getting enough sleep. How much sleep do you think we need? Who's going to be brave and shout it out? Who's going to be brave?
Enough.
8.5. Okay, thank you. What's that?
Enough.
Oh, enough. My bad. Okay, I gave away the answer, guys. Sorry.
Watch this, I get 7.
Okay, all right. So 7. Try for 8. Okay. How many other people? Somebody else had it? 6. 10. 4. 6 to 8. Okay. So my research says we need about 8 hours and 13 minutes on average. Okay. 8 hours and 13 minutes on average for the average person. So a few years ago, the American Automobile Association did a study, and they were looking at how impaired are you by sleep or lack of sleep. Okay, so what they found was, if you miss 1 hour of sleep one night, your chances of getting into an accident double. Okay? That's one night. That's not chronic sleep deprivation. That's one night, okay? They also found that if you get 5 hours or less of sleep, you're 10 times more likely to get into an accident than if you get 8 hours. So sleep is a huge thing. It's foundational to our well-being. So whatever we need to do, and we're going to talk about some things that we can do to help us get good sleep, but that's really, really important, okay? So sleep is the first thing. Exercise is number 2. getting to move our bodies, because then our hearts are pumping, blood's flowing, there's oxygen going to our brains. It's really one of the best things we can do to manage stress, but also to deal with depression, but generally be healthy. So they say about half an hour of exercise 5 or 6 times a week is enough to maintain good health. If you want to improve your health, you want to do about an hour, okay? And it doesn't have to be all together, it can even be chopped up and it's okay, all right? Nutrition and hydration, we had a wonderful meal, so thank you for that, right? We have beautiful food. We want to make sure we're eating regularly throughout the day. So one of the things that research has shown is generally to keep psychological well-being, you want to have frequent, often meals instead of like, big long stretches where you're not eating anything, all right? And we definitely need to keep hydrated, especially in the cold, dry winters we have in Alberta. And then the last thing is mindset. How do we see ourselves? How do we interact with other people? What is our mindset? What is our outlook? Optimism is one of the best things to help protect us from stress and anxiety and all the other things, okay? We're going to talk about celebration a little bit later, but it's part of mindset. So generally the idea is the better you feel, the better you do. So here's the audience participation part. I would like you to repeat after me because we're going to get it to stick in our minds, okay? Ready? Yeah. Oh, come on, guys. You guys forgot already? Ready?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The better you feel,
the better you do.
the better you do.
The better you do.
Okay, now we're going to personalize it. We're going to say I, okay? The better I feel,
the better I feel.
the better I do.
The better I do.
One more time. The better I feel,
The better I feel.
the better I do.
The better I do.
Okay, how do you feel right now?
Good.
Better, right? Okay, good. Excellent. Okay. So one of the ways to feel better, one of the ways that you can do is you want to fill your happy bank, right? Things that you're doing for yourself that you enjoy, that have gone well, you want to fill your happy bank because that helps you to have a buffer to manage stress. Another thing that my psychologist taught me is a 3-carrot rule. The 3-carrot rule is you always want to have 2 or 3 carrots, things you're looking forward to in the future that are in your schedule. Because that way you do one and you right away put another one in your schedule. So, I'm going to go see a movie, and then after that I'm going to go see a friend, and then after that I'm going to the Bahamas or whatever, right? As soon as you go see the friend, you want to book something else in because that anticipation, it protects us from stress, but it also helps give us that lift. Because the better you feel,
the better you do.
Right, okay, excellent. So the other thing is you want to stay connected. One of the things that the problems we had during COVID was we weren't connected. But social structure, social support, extremely important for our well-being. So stay connected, pay attention and invest in those relationships, especially the healthy ones, because that's going to help you be healthy, all right? Celebration is also extremely important. Celebration is a fuel for future success, all right? It doesn't have to be a celebration for us, we can celebrate for other people as well. As long as you're in a state of celebration, your physiology is better. You're happier, you're in a more positive state. That means you can perform better. It also means you can create more stuff in your life that then you get to celebrate, okay? And then you create this really positive snowball in your life, okay? So, we're going to do some more audience participation. I'd like you to quickly get into pairs. Quickly get into pairs. A and B. Just pair off, move apart if you need to. Get into couples, get into pairs, okay? And decide who's A and who's B. Two people, couples. 2, not 4. 2 people, quickly. All right? Decide who's A and B. Okay? You guys can do it too. Okay? You guys can do it too. All right. So, this is a little exercise I call it You're Awesome. All right? So one of the things we don't do very well in our culture is celebrate ourselves and celebrate each other, or know how to take positive feedback. All right? So actually, let's do it this way. The person with the shortest hair, you're going to go first. I'm a little biased.
How about no hairs?
I'm a little biased. Okay? So the person with the shortest hair, you're going to look at the other person, and you're going to, for 30 seconds, you're going to tell them they're awesome. Okay? But like this. Actually, Judi, can I borrow you for a second, please? Thank you. So here's what we're going to do, okay? So the person, I'm the one with the shortest hair, clearly. So the person receiving all they're going to do is look at me and say thank you after each statement. That's it. That's their whole job. Okay? Okay. Judi, I love your glasses. You're awesome. You have such great style. You know, you're such an amazing, amazing leader for us here at the PAA.
Thanks, guys.
You know, Judi, I just love your smile. You're so warm and welcoming.
Oh, thank you.
And just generally, you're awesome. You're awesome because you're awesome. Okay, thank you, Judi. Give her a hand. Give her a hand. Okay? So that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to switch. Okay? What we typically do in our culture is, oh no, oh you're being so kind, oh no, well somebody else did that better, and all this other stuff. We need to practice taking in good comments for ourselves, and also giving the respect, the gift of graciously receiving the gift. Yes?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes? Okay, good, thank you. Okay, so here we go. You guys ready? Shortest hair person goes first. And go.
Okay, so you're amazing because you're able to do all these things while you're alone or everybody else. Still make time in your family.
Thank you.
You're amazing because you're always sacrifice. You're amazing because you have this boundless optimism and confidence. You're amazing because you're a fantastic salesperson. You're amazing because you always
5 seconds. And stop, please. And stop. And stop, please. Stop. Okay. Switch partners. Not switch partners, but like the other person goes now. Okay. Ready? Ready? Go.
You're amazing because you understand very well when it's time to have a photo. You're amazing because you are very calm and you just reflected. And when you talk in the heart level, you're amazing because you are a very nice person, you are very respectful, in every relationship you are acknowledging your personal and outside you are doing amazing. You're amazing because
5 seconds. 5 seconds.
hard to know, but now we are very comfortable as we are.
And stop, please. Stop, please. And stop. Okay, thank your partners, please. Thank your partners. Okay. How do you feel? Better or worse?
Better.
Better. Remember what we just said? The better you feel,
The better you.
the better you do. So do you think you'll do better?
Yes.
Okay, do you think you'll remember what's coming next in the rest of the presentation today? Because your mind is sharp now, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. No, that's a whole nother presentation. Okay, so that's me. Go ahead and take a picture of that scan code and you get a free gift, okay? The idea, we have 12 stress-busting tips that everybody can get, and if you want, you can sign up for like ongoing stuff with us. It's all free, it's all without charge. But little things that are gonna help you to improve your well-being so that you can feel good, so that you can do better. Awesome, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Dr. Ganz. I'm waiting. I did do the scan, but I'm still waiting for my gift or a present.
Okay.
Before we go further, we have Baljinder Sull with us. Baljinder, we always, when we are living, we are in the world, right? We gain something, we lose something. Lost could be economical, financial, job, family member, emotion, and all how it affects us, it stresses. And when we talk about the grief, right, especially when the parents are there, children are moving out, that's also a grief. As for me, I could be wrong, but grief, when we say, is a different level of grief, and how we deal with it is a different level, right, or different strategies. As a specialist, or a cycle of grief, right, it goes like there's a day, right, the start goes up, and if we don't close it, it hits us for the rest of our life. So how you will explain and how you will help us to deal with it? Any tips?
Thank you, Snail. Thank you for that great presentation, Dr. Ganz. He brought you up and I might bring you down. That was not on purpose, I promise. My name is Baljinder and I'm a registered psychologist, and I mentioned earlier that this topic of grief is very personal to me. I'm very passionate about this area, and you will hear that. I don't want to in any way minimize the gravity of death, not at all, but I do like to make things humorous. It's just how, it's my favorite coping mechanism, is what my psychologist told me. So we're talking a little bit about what grief is, some types of grief, and how it can present. What I mean by that is how it can show up physically, emotionally, in our behaviors, socially, and how we interact with people as well, and cognitively. These are things that can be incredibly validating to know, because I have a lot of clients show up in my office wondering what on earth is going on. Why am I feeling this way, Val? And then cycles of grief. This is one model of many. If you were to Google models of grief, you might get something very interesting, I don't know. But you'll get various models on grief itself, the journey of grief, what have you. It comes from initially the stages of grief. And there wasn't really any process to me picking this. It wasn't scientific. I just had a bunch in front of me and I went eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and I landed on this one, and this is the one that you are going to see today. And just ways to support yourselves and loved ones, and how we love in absence. And the piece here that I really want to highlight is there's no expectation. So take what works for you each day, don't take what doesn't. There's no expectation to feel like, oh, but I'm not there, and she talked about that, and what does that mean? None of those things. It's basically saying you are where you are, and allow yourself to be okay with being where you are. Now, who here has heard the term time heals all wounds? Who has heard that? Okay, lots of hand raises, okay. Absolutely. Who has said it? I'm sure you've said it. I know I've said it. I admit that. I've said it. Okay, yeah? So the majority of us can relate to this term. We've all heard this at one point or another. Time heals all wounds. I heard it when my brother died. And I don't know how I felt about it in the moment, but I'll talk about that in a bit. And it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with the term in and of itself. It's rather that time is time is time. Time will pass regardless. We don't have control or any agency or influence over time. Time goes on. Rather, it's looking at it from this different perspective and saying it's what we do with that time. We have a lot more agency there. So we talk about what supports, personal and professional, do you have available to you? Do you practice self-compassion? Are you kind to yourself? When we're grieving, or even in our day-to-day, we are really, really hard on ourselves. And I'm willing to bet none of you would be that hard on somebody else who is grieving. And yet we are extremely, extremely hard on ourselves when we're grieving. How you can build new traditions, self-care, honoring yourself and loved ones. And I'll be talking about all of those in a bit here as well. Now, the first time I heard someone say to me, following my brother's death, and as I mentioned, my brother died 11 and a half years ago, and he died in a rock climbing accident. And it was very sudden, very tragic, as death is, and it was also very public. And I'm an adult child. I have family of my own, and it was really difficult to sort of deal with that. And I've had multiple losses in my life, death-related and non-death related, and this one was hitting me the hardest, and I really didn't know what to do, and I felt quite stuck. And I heard this term, time will heal you, Val. And I said, great, okay, I can just wait it out then. And I functioned with this approach, and I was like, okay, tick-tock, 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 when will I feel better? And that's how I functioned in my day-to-day. And I kept waiting for the next day, for the next day, for the next day. I was like, I'm not still feeling better. And we were like months in, and I was like, I don't feel better. And it was really challenging for me. Now I'm going to talk about what grief is. And everyone here, whenever I say grief, who thinks of death? The majority of you, that's all right. Grief is the death of something or someone that you love. So it's when we lose someone we value, or when we lose something we value as well. Most people will be surprised to hear that you experience grief and you experience happy events in your life. So weddings, we are in the right space for that. When you have children, when you buy the house, when you get a promotion, when you get the car. Would you be surprised if I tell you that you experience grief when you have those positive events in your lives? Yes, some of you would be surprised. You do. I'm sure any parent here is grieving the last time they had a good night's rest since having children. Yes?
Yes.
I know I am. Absolutely.
That goes away with time.
Or what you do with that time, certainly.
It's what they do with that time as they get older.
Absolutely, absolutely. So these are the things we grieve, but we don't necessarily think about it. Often we become stuck when something significant happens or when someone we love dies. Now, grief is a very natural and universal experience, so we consistently experience this, and it's very much ongoing. So another question for the group: who here has lost someone they love or knows someone who has lost someone that they love? Okay, most of you. And please don't feel pressured to answer. That's a very vulnerable question, so please show up as you are, and I appreciate everyone for showing up as they are today. Now, that's important to recognize. So I'm in a privileged space here. I can see everyone who raised their hands. And I do want to highlight that there's a universality to grief. All of us can connect in some way to our mutually shared experiences of grief. And that's not to say that everyone grieves the same way. Not at all. It's just saying, how can we all connect on grief? Now, this was a few months again after my brother passed away, and my girlfriend was over, and she got me on a day that I wasn't overthinking, or a brief moment that I wasn't overthinking. I overthink a lot. These people know that. I was thinking right up until this point, I was overthinking. And she said to me, she said, "Belle, how are you feeling?" And I said, "Lonely." And she said, "What?" And I said, And it caught me off guard that I was so open and honest with her. I love my girlfriend, but the fact that I was really open and honest about this really vulnerable emotion that was showing up caught me off guard, because I fluctuated between okay, good, and fine, none of which were emotions. I was just like, I'm okay, good, fine, okay, good, fine, okay, good, fine. And that's kind of where I fluctuated. It felt safe. I felt lonely. I hadn't experienced spaces like this where grief was talked about. I was a woman whose brother had died, and that was it. I'm a sister whose brother has died. I'm part of this exclusive club, and it felt very small. It felt extremely lonely. When I was able to get some supports and resources, what I realized was that there was a lot of us out there. This is not as exclusive of a club, is it? I'm guessing that there's a lot of people in our day-to-day lives who have lost someone they love or something that they value, or know someone who has lost someone they love or something that they value. But with that being said, it is also personal and unique. And that speaks to our relationship with our loved one. Not how we're related, our relationship. My relationship with my brother was mine. My older brother's relationship with our younger brother was his. So everyone's relationship is unique. And also our subjective scopes. All of you grieve differently because of your experiences, because of what was role modeled for you, the people that you've lost in your lives, your culture, your belief systems, your values, what was role modeled for you as well. What did you see when you were growing up when it came to grieving? What were you socialized around? And that makes our grief unique as well. And culture is ongoing. So it changes. How I've grieved in the past is not how I grieve now. It's not how I will grieve in the future. So it's consistently changing. And it can challenge your sense of meaning. And for me, that looked like, am I still an older sister? So these big questions I didn't have the answer to at the time. Do I still have a younger brother? Yes and yes to both those questions. And it's something that can't be rushed. And I learned this from the hard way, and I'll share that story with you. And it's not linear. Also part of that lesson I learned as well. Because I wanted to rush through it. I was like, start, middle, finish. Where am I at? I need to get through this now, quickly. And that was just how I was trying to cope with it. And there's multiple layers. So not only do we grieve the loss of that person that we love, but we grieve ourselves. A part of me has died since losing my brother. Our sense of meaning, our hopes and dreams that were attached to that belief that this person would be a part of our lives for our forever. This is why grief is quite complex. I'm going to quickly go over this slide with regard to types of grief. Now, anticipatory grief is the grief that we're faced with, and these are our reactions when we're faced with end of life. And they can range with guilt, anger, frustration, denial. exhaustion as well. All grief is complicated, but this term specifically speaks to frequency, duration, and intensity. Does that subside? And secondary grief are the losses that we face following the initial loss. So loss of financial security, loss of job, loss of home, loss of relationships as well. And disenfranchised grief. This is grief that may not be recognized by the greatest society. Say, for example, the relationship wasn't at its best at the time that your loved one passed away. And traumatic grief relates to sudden loss, such as suicide or witnessing a traumatic event. And collective grief is what we all experienced during COVID. So when those shutdowns occurred, we all experienced a collective grief. We experienced it differently, and I do want to preface that speaks to the subjective nature of our experiences. However, we all collectively experienced it. Much as this room itself, when you all raised your hands and you said there's a universality to it. That's what that speaks to. Now, how grief can present. I will have clients come into my office and say, Val, I feel tired. And I say, that's grief. I say, I feel exhausted. Even though I'm getting 8 hours and 13 minutes of sleep, I feel tired. I feel like I'm making errors. And I'm saying, that's the grief. Val, I'm tired. That's the grief. Val, I don't like people. I'm like, that's the grief. Then I'll ask a follow-up question and I say, did you like people before your loved one died? And they'll say either yes or no. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Your beliefs can be challenged. They can either be affirmed, they can be shifted, they can be challenged. So there's a lot going on here. I will have clients say a bunch of stuff to me and they say, I feel like I'm going crazy. And say, you're not going crazy, you're grieving. There's nothing wrong with you. I hear that all the time. What's wrong with me, Belle? I say, there's nothing wrong with you, but something bad happened to you. You experienced a very, very defining event in your life, and this is how it presents. And it shows up in our behaviors as well. And that can look like wearing clothes of the deceased, spending time with friends of the deceased. All these are part of our behaviors. And whenever clients show up into my office, I say, show up as you are. I'm not going to judge. It's not for me to say that something is right or wrong or good or bad. I just say it's sustainable. We don't want prolonged distractions from our grief because working through it is very, very important. Now, when I have time, I do like to make little Instagram posts. It just appeals to my creative nature, and so I wanted to put this up there just as a way to have a visual. I'm a very visual person, and so I wanted to put this up on the screen for you to just highlight the amount of emotions that can be present when we are grieving. So if you felt like you're on a roller coaster ride that you're not able to get off from, that's what grief is. One moment you can feel happy and the next moment you can feel despair. One moment you can feel joy and the next moment you can feel feelings of helplessness. That is grief. And so this is the Mo from my Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. And this is called the Cycles of Grief. And before I go into this, I want to share a quick story with you from my own experiences of when I was first introduced to the cycles of grief. About 6 months after my brother passed away, I was referred to the Grief Support Services program in Calgary. We have a program that specializes in death-related loss, and it was specifically for sibling loss. And this is what helped me counter that. It's just me, myself, and I am part of this exclusive club all on my own. And so I went to the support group, and when I got there, I was given my name tag, and like, what's your name? I said, Val. And at the time, my identity was so tied to my brother dying, it might as well have been Val, Sull, my brother died. Like, it might as well have. I felt like I needed a t-shirt, a hat, everything. My whole identity was tied to my brother dying. So I get my name tag, and to my absolute horror, I kid you not, I get in there, and all the chairs were in a circle. And there were no 3 chairs empty. That was my plan. I wanted to go in and I wanted to sit in one of those empty chairs, but make sure I had a chair to my right and a chair to my left empty. It's not that I didn't like people, I like people, but I wanted to have choice. I wanted to decide as someone that's got to sit next to me. And that's what it is. We create choice and we create these constructs in order to feel safe following the loss of a loved one. And that was taken away from me, and that really challenged me in that moment. And so I went to the food. There was food there, and that's where I went. I went and loaded my plate with brownies, because that was the only thing I could do at the time. And one of the volunteers, she came up to me and she said, hey, do you have any questions, Belle? And I'm standing with her kind of off to the room, and the group was sort of like where all of you are. And I look over and I'm like, where am I at? Like, ballpark it for me. I was like, because I want to win. I wanted to win grief. I wanted the certificate. Belle conquered grief. Belle beat everyone else. I'm a very competitive person. I'm going to be really, really honest with all of you. And I wanted to win. I had my running shoes on. I was going to outrun it, and I was going to win. And I was just like, I'm going to beat all of these people. We're all good friends, by the way, and I've actually shared this story with them, so this won't be a surprise to them. And she looked at me and she gave me the sad grief face. Anyone ever gotten the sad grief face? I got the sad grief face in that moment. And she looked at me and she was like, there's no end, and you are where you are. That was soul crushing because it was something that was intangible for me. I did go and sit down. I sat in one of the 2 chairs and I let someone sit on my right, and I was okay with it. Now, I do want to talk about the cycles of grief, and I won't take too much time on this. It can be sort of a complex process, but really it speaks to the ongoing processes of grief. We don't stop grieving, and that's not to upset anyone. Rather, it's saying that the grief is there because the love is there. When the people that we love die, we don't stop loving them, do we? No, we don't. Thank you for sharing that. We continue to love them. Now it's about loving them differently. But initially, following our loss, there is a shock. There's denial, there's anger. And we're trying to absorb that shock. And there can be a disconnect between our brain and our hearts. And that's quite common. Our brains know, but our hearts are playing a bit of catch-up. And I always say, I feel like they're playing a bit of catch-up forever. That's where the love resides. You may feel numb, you may feel disorganized. And that's like being on autopilot. I've had folks describe this to me as feeling like they're on survival mode, going from A to B to C to D, just going through the motions. Well, I did this today, I did this today, I did this today. And that's good, because we need to recreate that stability. And it's only natural for us to shift into the state where we want to process. And that's what confrontation is. And it's called that because it can be a confronting of emotions, and that can feel overwhelming. So there may be anxiety, there may be depression. I will have clients say to me, yeah, but my loved one died a year ago. Why am I feeling this way now? Everyone is different for when they experience confrontation. And what it is, there can be a tug of war. You're living your life before and after the loss, and you're trying to resolve that ambiguity around a past that you cannot have and a future that you're unsure of. Naturally, as you work through that, you shift into integration. And this is where people notice, Belle, I tried something new today, and it felt really good. Integration. Belle, I'm going to apply for that new job that I've been wanting to do for a while. Integration. This is where the waves of grief reduce in their intensity, and their frequency, and the duration. People are willing to take risks again, and so it can primarily reside in this integrated state. But it's ongoing in the sense that when birthdays, anniversaries, or events that may remind you of your loss come about, you can feel like you're getting bumped around. You're back in avoidance, you're back in confrontation, but you're able to come back quicker because you are primarily in that integrated state. Now, if you do have questions about this model, we're doing the Q&A piece in a bit, and I'll be happy to answer those for you. Now, self-care, I'm going to totally skim this because Dr. Ganz covered it so awesomely. When it comes to creating stability, we want to do these pieces first. We don't want to miss the structure, our sleep, what we eat, how we hydrate, our activity. This is just basic movement. This is not about busting out a workout in the gym or anything like that. You know, social connection, social supports, these are so integral to our recovery. Breathing techniques, grounding, engaging in the senses, essential oils, again, connection. If you're noticing that your bodies are dysregulated, what do you do in order to support your well-being? Remember, we are our best resources, and we have the power to do that. And when we have that stability, I always encourage clients to engage in some form of reflection just to help them, because there's so much there, and that can really help them work through that confrontation piece. I'm always asked, what's the right way? And I say the right way is your way. There's 2 rules. Don't hurt yourself, don't hurt other people. That's it. Other than that, right way is your way. Some people like that answer, some people don't. They might be needing something tangible. And if that's the case, I say, how about you try some journaling? Just write down what's going on. It doesn't have to make sense. Just put it down on paper. Get it out of the head. or dedicate some time to grieving. Now that might sound a bit odd, but it can be really valuable to just schedule some time to grieve. That looks like being intentional in that space for 5 minutes. 5 minutes might not sound like a long time, but it is when you're trying to grieve intentionally. So looking at pictures, talking about the loved one, and just working through some of those emotions that may arise. And engaging in some rituals for your loved ones as well. Now, I'm sure we can all think of, I'm pretty sure we could spend the rest of the afternoon talking about the things not to say. We could write volumes on the things not to say to people who were grieving. I'm sure you've heard some of those things as well. So we're just not going to give any of that any space. Rather, we're going to just focus on the helpful things to say. And even if you were to search it, what are some helpful things I can say to my loved one who's grieving? You will get a long list. And say, make it your own. Find what works. Find what feels right and sincere. There's also lots of nonverbal ways that you can support people as well. What can I do for you? If that feels too abstract, I'm going to bring you food. Don't feel like you have to answer the door when I drop it off. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to ring the doorbell. I'm going to leave. Respect what the person needs. And if I am asked, Val, I don't know what to say. I say nothing. There's an immense power in sitting with people when they are grieving. Grief requires witnessing. It's key to helping us work through. And often people will sit with someone who's grieving and they'll tell them, oh, okay, let's just kind of help them work through it. I say, just let them be where they are. Let them cry. Let them sit in that space without desire to need, fix, or change them. And you're giving them this permission to just be where they are at. So these are a few options that are available, and again, many more. Oh, that didn't come out too clear. Sorry, can everyone read that? Yeah? Okay. Loving in absence. When it comes to creating traditions and rituals, it might not feel like it, but we just did that here today in these brief few moments, just connecting on our mutuality on grief. When we're able to share in those experiences, so me sharing briefly about my brother, when you're able to share about your loved ones with other people, we create these really lovely connections. Not only do we share their stories, but we share their past, we share their lineage, and we just never know the impact of our stories and how another person may be impacted by them as well. And so when it comes to tradition, I say the meaning you derive from it is uniquely your own. It doesn't matter. It's not for anyone else. It's just for you. Does it help you connect to your loved ones? The answer is yes, great. Continue to do it. And when it comes to tradition, it's saying, take it as it is, adapt it, or make it up. What helps you connect? What helps you create that continuity? What helps you honor yourself? What helps you honor your loved one? Those are the fundamentals in loving in absence. I just thought I would end with this brief poem here. Feel free to take a read if you would like, and I really thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Baljinder, to walking us through with how to handle the grief, how to acknowledge, how to, basically the most important is asking for the support when we need it. I would like to invite, my question, let's go to Patricia. Patricia, we are all immigrants. Most, when we are living in Canada, we are immigrants who have come from different parts of the world, different situations, different circumstances, and we live here. And we get adjusted and digested. And when we are coming, we have different values, different cultures, different religion, different, even though we speak English, but the English is different, like how we speak too, right? What kind of a stress we go through or handle when we come to a different parts of the world?
As you set up the meeting, I am going to move also here. Thank you so much for the invitation. This is a wonderful opportunity to talk about this experience. As an immigrant myself, I have been in Canada for 17 years. And I can say before I registered as a provisional psychologist, I became specialized in immigration process because being an immigrant can transform your life. And I want to ask you, how many of you are here, you can raise your hand, is you identify as an immigrant or you are an immigrant? Wow, quite a bit here too, right? So you are also specialized in being an immigrant, no matter how many years. Is this the first year for you, this is 17 years for you, or 10 years, I don't know. But every time that we experience living abroad of our community, or our comfort zone, of our geographical, when we were born, that is experience that can take a lot of and transform your life. And I leave you to decide if you want to evaluate that experience as a positive or negative, because I know stories of both sides, right? But today I want to share my reflections and the experience that I have working with immigrants. I had my private practice, and I noticed some patterns that I want to share with you, those reflections, to create a better understanding of why mental health is very important for immigrants. But before to do that, actually, and here is the psychology part of me, I see that we have already an hour and a half sitting down, so I just want to ask you please to stand up. And we are going to do a little bit of an exercise to move, because movement is part of an immigration part too. So I don't have my hands free right now, but I want to ask you, you just shake it a little bit, please. Yeah, or rub it if you want it. And we are going to take, when you are ready, a deep breath. Hold it for 3 seconds and make a sound. Okay, we are going to do it again. Deep breathing. Hold it. And breathing out. Last one. Breathing in and take it. When you are breathing out this time, take every stress or everything that you have that might be today in your mind, okay? Just and take it away. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Breathing in. Hold it. Thank you so much. Okay, mental health for immigrants. Since I came, I started working with immigrants even before I was speaking English, because I say, okay, I was a psychologist in Colombia. I can be a psychologist yet, because that was my goal, right? And now I'm here. But at that time, I say, what I can do to put in serving my skills as a psychologist, right? So I went around to the University of Calgary and say, okay, I found a Spanish-English group, and I say, okay, I want to volunteer, right? And I start talking about my culture with people that want to learn the Spanish, and start understanding that they were curious, but also getting to know people that were like me, not speaking. And I say, this is a very interesting process of connecting, on being there, and so even as I was a psychologist, I realized since very early in the process of being here that if I don't take care of myself and my mind, not just only my body, I'm going to school and try to do some routines, I will be feeling really sad and come back to the topic of the grieving, right? So I say, okay, I need to take care of that, and how I'm gonna do that. So I start talking about connections. So, yeah, I had to move this, right? Okay, so it's good here. Okay, so I understood and I started realizing the stressor for immigrants can be so many loss and grieving around that. And I just want to speak about 7, but you did a beautiful job about talking to different grieving. But one of the things that we as immigrants grieving or loss is family and friends. If you really think about it of your time when you were coming here, that in my case, for example, I didn't have anybody except my ex-husband at that time. That was the only connection that I had at that moment. And I was missing my family, And I feel like the lack of connection, and even my friends, I always has been very social, always. But here, I couldn't speak the language. And I didn't know so many Spanish speakers, so I feel isolated, right? And I know that this is a very common experience amongst my clients and other people when we are talking about being an immigrant. Another thing is the social support. And when I call about the social support, it's not just only friends and family, that's the more closer connections. It's about the community. I was talking with my colleagues, I was going to different social groups and interactions, but here it was difficult, I didn't know, right? And it's the same in similar cases with the clients when they come to my sessions, they say, I feel alone, I feel that I don't know where I can get this social support. So this is another kind of grieving and loss. Career and jobs. And I made a difference here because one thing is being a professional or having a career, building all this passion about what you want to do. Another thing is working because you have to pay the bills, right? And many of the immigrants is based on the immigration process with the government. Canada and Australia, I think, that are one of the process that immigration is based on points, right? That you get points and you get selected because you speak English, because you have children, because you are a professional among these 20 lists of most common careers. But beside that, right, you can be a doctor. And how many know here doctors driving Uber? I know, right? And even I know professionals that have given up about their opportunity to be a professional here in their career because they need to feed the family, right? And it's nothing wrong with that. The selection, everyone do the sacrifices, everyone do the process of seeing how I'm going to integrate here. But the important question is how you are taking care of yourself in the process of integrating. The other aspect is life purpose, values, self-esteem. And again, it's not about titles, because I have known very successful immigrants that they decide, actually, I was a doctor in my country, but you know what, that was not my passion. And they reinvent themselves, right? And they say, I want to open a business of cleaning company. I actually have a very successful friend that had a cleaning company in Alberta, because it's not just only in Calgary, I'm Calgary based, but she is in Calgary, in Edmonton, and in different towns. And she is really, really happy doing that. And she was an accountant before. So that's an opportunity for you to reinvent yourself, right? So we can have both cases, people that have the career, and they say, I'm not interested to do any more that, or I want to follow my dream. In my case, I couldn't negotiate to be a psychologist because this is my passion, this is what I love. And I find it, what other thing I can, no, I want to do psychologist. And financial status, I'm not going to explain that because we know all what it is, right? In the beginning, it's really difficult to find even a job. It's difficult to connect with a career, imagine, to find a job sometimes. Cultural and sense of belonging. And this is really, really interesting for me because because it has very important topics here. I can say, and I define myself right now as an immigrant or a global human being in this earth, living in Canada, which I love. I love winter. Let me tell you, one of the first things that I learned when I moved here was understanding that it's gonna be cold 8 months. I better do something with the cold and the snow here, right? Because it's not, you are gonna be isolated, you are gonna be all the time inside, and I love the mountains, and I love the lakes and the rivers. So learning how you can connect with the culture, but also how you can bring your culture to other people. And I think Latinos have done a great job doing salsa. So this is who we are, right? It's not giving back about your culture, and it's not only immersed in the mainstream, forgetting about your connections. As you Beverly was saying, all of us here, we provide something, right? And I really love what you say when you say, I acknowledge you also, because you are here now. And every immigrant that is coming here, Canada needs you, right? We are building this country with our beautiful things, passions and things. So it's better that you connect with that, because that's how we are gonna make this country better. And psychological and emotional balance. What is the meaning that you are providing? What are the beliefs and the core beliefs that you had to negotiate that doesn't represent who you are right now with the evolving of this experience? So this is part of the stressors. And this image, life is not about formulas, but I can share this not as a formula, but as some of the aspects that can be very valuable when you are speaking about taking care of yourself and taking care of your mental health. One of the biggest things and skills that we as immigrants develop is resilience. It's the capacity to overcome those difficulties to become a better you, a better human. So the E represents the events, the situations. The event is that I immigrate, I am here alone, I don't have connections, right? So many things that can happen that you can control. It's not in your hands, just happen. And even if you try to control, sometimes don't go as you were planned, right? Plus the response, how you are going to respond to that situation. And I better emphasize in the response that you can provide and not in the reactions that you can have. Because sometimes we think about with this brain, right? With the automatic response, the stress, or fight, flight, right? But when you combine the situations plus the response that you can provide, you can have the real outcome. And that outcome basically is representing, and 100%, you are 100% responsible for how you are going to respond to that event. So this is a formula that I share with you because I think that is as much we focus on the internal control, that what we can be able to control and how we are going to respond is better than focus on the outside circumstance and the situation. And you will see great changes there. And that's why people believe that psychologists, we are just only talking about emotions, and yes, we do thinkings and actions, and it's very important, but we actually talk about changes. That's what we are actually doing. We create and provide safe spaces for people to create the changes that they want. And that's what is related with immigration, because we are changing not just only about the weather, about the ways that we are living, the countries, the language, but we are creating transformational change in our life. So I believe that every change for immigrants has its different stages that take personal stories and mental health stressors in consideration, right? So what we are going to see, and here is based on the stages of changes, how we can apply that to the immigrant situation. When we are in pre-contemplation is when we are just moved here, right? And I guess many of you that immigrate the first time, how did you feel? I guess, especially when I came when was my first winter was minus 35. And I said, holy moly, what am I gonna do here? And I didn't realize that was so cold. And one day I was so happy looking in the window, and it was so sunshine, and said, oh, it's hot. And I went outside, I almost froze. I had my first bite? Frostbite, yeah, exactly. So, and I learned the lesson that not even because it's sunny, that means that it's gonna be hot, right? So that cultural shock or that physical shock to the weather or whatever is the pre-contemplation is that I don't know what is happening here and I don't accept that. No, this is not happening, right? And then, and it depends on the process and the skills that you have and the connections and the social support that you will understand, okay, I need to do something here. So that's when you are moving to the contemplation, thinking and talking about looking for support, getting connected, getting the social connections that you need. To understand how you are going to prepare for that, to live here, because you really need to prepare. But that's when, after many years of being here, I said, how I can support more immigrants to prepare for the changes that they are going to live. And not seeing them in my counseling session of my colleagues, right, when they don't have already a situation, and working more in prevention is very important in order to take the actions and practice new routines that many of you already mentioned, the sleeping well and going, to the social connections that we need to have. And being in the maintenance is like an achievement. I haven't get back. Now I can say myself I am a Canadian. I'm speaking English. So I'm not going to back to my country. That's a decision that I took a long time because I feel this is home now. This is where I am now. And that's what I want for everyone here. Every immigrant that takes the decision to leave is take this opportunity to be successful in the process. And even if you decide to come back, it doesn't mean that you are not successful. It's a personal decision. You are in another moment or whatever is happening there. But in the meantime that you decide an immigrant, enjoy the process because it's bringing beautiful parts of yourself. However, we know that not everything is bright. And that's why we are working hard with the college, with the association, to helping immigrants to break in the barriers and be more resilient about mental health. So the level of stress on the other side that immigrants can feel really can jeopardize their future and their personality and all the outcomes that they can create here when they decide to move. Because all these can be represented in different forms such as anxiety, depression, lack of motivation, lack of confidence, self-esteem, procrastination, and physical and mental issues. I remember when I was in school, I didn't speak a single word. And communication for me was big, it was part of my personality. But I have zero confidence to stand that as I am doing here right now, at that time. And I said, until I said, no, I'm horrible with English. I can't do it. I'm not gonna be the person that was there, right? And one day I say, no, enough is enough. I'm gonna learn how to communicate in English in the way that I can and continue being that person and even being a better person to communicate. But I had a lot of social support. I had mentors. I dedicate a lot of hard work to do that. Because usually when people believe that overcoming and create resilience and overcoming mental health, we don't have to do anything. As Val was saying, you just wait, right? And let the time pass. Not what we do on those processes to create the person, the new person that we need to be. So building your new life project, that's what it is. Whether it is similar, what you just had when you were in your country, or something totally different, new, that's okay too. You decide, because you are the driver of that car. So choosing a healthy lifestyle And that's when I'm switching from mental health to wellness and lifestyle, healthy lifestyles, because we can cope with negative coping strategies, right? We can cope the cold drinking more, or we can cope with the stress smoking. But is that really what you want to do? Or is that really the solution? I don't think so. So healthy lifestyle means building mindfulness in your life, being present. What do you need? What is your heart asking you? What is your body asking you? And what is your soul and your mind asking you at this moment? Self-care plans, mind, body, and spirit. And when I'm talking about the spiritual belief, I'm not just talking about religion. I believe that in the spiritual belief is also whether any religion or other belief that you have is about the values and the life purpose, how you connect with that. Social network, I'm never gonna stop talking about that because I love building communities, I believe in the community, and I think that's how we are gonna be stronger. And education and prevention. So the process of integration in the personal and social life. Here is a model, and I'm not going to explain this in a big form right now because it will be too much, but I like the ecological theory of Baumgartner applying to the psychological process of immigration, because in the center you are in the microsystem, being a student or immigrant. Then how you relate in the early stage of being an immigrant and connect with the other systems, that is the schools, the bank, the legal part, is how you are going to become. And also not just only what you connect with external, but how you connect with yourself. How you review, for example, the belief that you have about being an immigrant. What does that mean for you? And I want to challenge you that, again, I want to say this, immigration is a beautiful process that transforms your life. So the key factor is asking, what skills do you need to develop to become more inclusive in your community or in a new culture? And I also want to say this is two ways effort, because it's my effort to connect as well the Main Street communities to connect with you. And that's why we are doing this. So I think it's two ways. It's like any other relationship, how you are going to create those connections. And here is another model by Gordon that provides an example of the different inclusion that we can have and integrations, where everyone is equal and the difference are outside. Segregation, right? You do, here is the equals and here is the other group, right? Integrations, you still integrated but separated from others. And inclusion is everyone is the same, because I say the new way of immigrate is we are all numeral humans, right? This is the universal thing, no matter where you are, no matter if you have an accent, if you're speaking another language. Actually, I am learning my third language now. I am learning Italian. Because I can speak in English, oh, now I can speak in any other language. Like, it was so difficult for me, right? And now I'm happy, I am proud of being able to speak. So that's the integration model that we want to get there. And I just want to share something that after 17 years, just to finish, and answer that question, how I can support better with the knowledge, because I have been working so hard in the intervention side, and really sometimes I get frustrated because I see and I'm helping one-on-one my clients, and yes, I see still new immigrants coming and see that they are knowing, they don't have a clue how this process is working. So after all these years, I said, I need to do something else. And I create a specific program. This is my new baby. I don't have children, but I had ideas. So, Passport to Integration. This is a new program that is actually launched, it was launched in November in Miami, but is a Canadian baby. And basically what it is a literacy program for mental health for immigrants that is developing skills, how you can develop specific skills to integrate and be successful in that process. Don't kill yourself. You just can become the beautiful person that you are, the beautiful human that you are anywhere you go. Okay? So that is an online program. It's 4 modules, and basically is building social support. So it's new here, and I love to share that with you. Anyone that want to get more questions about that, please let me know, and thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. What a journey. Like, I have been to Canada about like 22 years now, but it looks like it's still, you are traveling in 2 boats, you neither can let it go and cannot be fully be Canadian too. Especially I think it goes with the first generation. Now we have Chitwan, and is the word imposter syndrome. What is it? Like imposter, like we always doubt ourselves. Why? Why it is happening, why I'm doing it, self-confidence, so many things. And Chitwan being a student and being an immigrant, being a young generation, tortured by the parents and the teacher, what you say about it?
Thank you. First off, I just wanted to say that I'm honored to be here for Psychology Month to talk to you guys about imposter syndrome. So I just wanted to get started to talk to you guys a little bit about why I chose to do imposter syndrome. So I definitely wanted to raise awareness. Maybe a lot of people here might have heard the term imposter syndrome, but when I talk about the experiences that come with it, you guys might have a little light bulb moment like, hey, maybe that's what I'm experiencing and when I'm going through challenging situations. And of course, this whole event is just about fostering open conversation. The more we talk about these sort of things, the more social systems will be in place to help us along with them. And I hope that some of the things I talk about today will help you guys overcome your feelings of imposter syndrome. I'll talk about my personal ways of overcoming, as well as some research-based solutions. And there is also a personal reason for my choice today, and it kind of goes along with this presentation. As soon as I was given this opportunity, with the excitement, along with that came the feelings of self-doubt and am I going to be able to do this? Do I deserve this? So I thought, why not be nervous and share it with a whole room of people? So for those of you that might not know what imposter syndrome is, the term was coined by Susanna Imes and Pauline Rose Chance, and it refers to a psychological phenomenon where individuals, despite evident success, harbor persistent feelings of inauthenticity and self-doubt. So maybe a lot of people here might realize that this is something they have actually gone through. So some of the key characteristics include the treadmill experience. So that's the anxiety, self-doubt, and dread that comes when you face new challenges. And of course, when any of us step out of our comfort zone, we probably do experience this to some degree. However, it becomes problematic when we find ourselves not taking on new challenges due to that anxiety. And the to be special experience. So this is when we desire to be perfect. And for me, that manifests in procrastination. I feel like I can't just start and write a rough draft. As soon as I put it down, it's got to be perfect and nothing else will work. And that's obviously not going to be productive. And feeling like a failure, so over-preparing to kind of combat these feelings of, what if I fail? And there's nothing wrong with preparing for everything that you do. I hope you prepare for any exam, any interview, any presentation, or any room that you walk into. However, the problem comes when you feel like you've prepared as much as you can, but you still don't feel ready to walk into whatever you're about to experience. And that denial of competence, so that's when you might actually be succeeding in the things that you want to and finally reaching all of your goals. However, you won't internalize those feelings. You won't think, oh, I actually did something to accomplish this, this was my skills, but rather maybe put that on some external circumstances or luck. And there's a fear of guilt about success, so when you do succeed, you'll think, I don't think I did enough to get here, and again, blame it on those external circumstances. And I'm sure imposter syndrome is almost a universal experience, but I did want to talk about kind of the statistics of who experiences imposter syndrome. So the young people here will be happy to know that imposter syndrome symptoms usually do decrease with age, and I'm not sure if that comes with a sense of confidence or maybe even just experience in their own skill set. But something that I found interesting is that those who do experience imposter syndrome will experience greater humiliation and guilt after failure, and that might be because those that do experience it will attribute their failures to internal factors and their achievements to external factors. And those who do not experience imposter syndrome report the opposite. And I wanted to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome in psychology students. So usually with students, the imposter syndrome is a fear of social standings and imperfection in front of peers and their professors. And this study also found that imposter syndrome is much more common within marginalized groups. And this particular study found that there is gender differences. Usually females experience it more than males. However, there's some conflicting studies, so we can't be too sure about that. But something that I found really important to talk about, part of this whole study, was that people who experience imposter syndrome will usually have lower academic confidence. However, the study found that the GPAs are the same with those that experience it and those that do not. So I think that just shows you that those feelings that you're feeling, they're not based in fact, they're just based in fear. And I want to talk about the types of imposter syndrome. So the first one is the perfectionist. I know we already talked about this a little bit, but even when they do accomplish or reach their goals, they'll still look back and think, I should have done this better, I didn't do this well enough. They still won't feel accomplished in those things that they do. And then the super person. So this person will work excessively hard and take on any task that anybody offers them. They'll say yes, 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 yes. And if they don't, they'll feel like they're not doing enough. And even if they do say yes, they still don't feel like they're taking on enough work to deserve the accomplishments. And then there's the natural genius, aka me. No, just kidding. This is actually not a good thing, even though it sounds like it. This person will judge competence based on ease, speed, and getting things right. So if something challenges them in a certain way, if they're not able to do something as quick as they possibly can or as easily, they'll feel as if they are not competent enough or smart enough to get it done in the first place. And we all know that there's certain things that we excel at. We will probably need to learn other things and maybe do it slower than others. And then there's the soloist. So a lot of the panelists here talked about the importance of support. And this person will feel that the support that they get makes that accomplishment and achievements phony and that they didn't actually achieve them on their own. But we've all talked about how important it is to have that support. Even though I'm up here doing my presentation alone, I had support from my family. They made dinner last night so I could practice, and I had support from my friends who listened to my presentation and told me that I was taking way too long. And then there's the expert. So this person will usually measure competence based on knowledge or skills, and they're always seeking new knowledge, which is definitely not a bad thing. But while we call them the expert, they will not take that name themselves. They'll feel as if they still don't know enough. So I was just curious to see, has anybody here experienced any of these types of imposter syndrome? Nice to know that everyone here has experienced it as well. Okay, so let's get to a little bit of positivity. We might actually be able to transform our imposter syndrome into confidence. So first, to do that, we need to acknowledge and name our fears. So something like this today might help. when you realize that you're having these emotions, you might be able to realize, okay, that might be that imposter syndrome talking, and give it less power in your head. You'll realize that this is just a human experience that happens with these challenges that you're facing. And examine your fear with curiosity. So rather than looking down on yourself, rather than just letting those emotions take over, look at it in a fact-based way. Why are these emotions popping up? Does this usually happen when I'm in a certain situation? And that will allow you to kind of take the power away from those negative emotions that you're feeling. And reframe your fear into a positive. So that's like a general statement up there that sounds very easy to say, but it's very hard to do. But along with kind of looking at your fears in a fact-based way, just realizing that maybe this is actually a good thing that I'm feeling this way. This is a human experience, and it usually means that we're doing something that's meaningful. And take action and gain small wins. So when you take action, you're actually overcoming all of those fears. One small action is such a big move for people that are experiencing this sort of cognitive dissonance in their head, that they're like, that when you're actually overcoming your fears. So gain those small wins, think about those wins, because those wins are actually evidence that you overcame your fear in the past and you'll be able to do it again. And this might sound impossible, but treat imposter syndrome as your friend. Like I said before, these sort of emotions only pop up when you're doing something important and meaningful, and that will always happen when you're growing. So remember that imposter syndrome is there because you're doing something that matters. And I wanted to talk a little bit about a case study done on imposter syndrome among marginalized undergraduates in STEM. The main case of this study was about how imposter syndrome might not just be an individual experience, but could actually be the cause of systematic inequalities. So some of the people in the case study talked about how they already felt like they had to catch up with their privileged peers, whether their grades were the same, whether they were part of the same clubs. They felt as if they still had some catching up to do, even if it was the same thing because they came from a different background. And then along with the African American students, they talked about how they were afraid of being that token person of color, and maybe that's why they received their opportunities rather than their merit and hard work. And something that I found really interesting was that one of the African American students talked about code switching, and that when you're already going into an academic or professional situation, you are already hiding part of yourself. You're already becoming different in a way because those people will not consider the way you're talking or your actions to be professional or academic. So I think that kind of shows why imposter syndrome is more common in marginalized groups, because when you're already going into a setting like that, you are putting on a different version of yourself as it is. So let's talk about some strategies to overcome imposter syndrome. So first things first, remember feelings are not facts. We all have negative emotions, we all have positive emotions. However, personally, my brain decides to take those negative emotions and run with them. But we need to remember that this is just part of the journey, we'll have these emotions, but don't let them get too loud in the back of your head. And in order to do that, it's very important to cultivate self-compassion. So like a lot of the people here have already talked about, we need to be kinder to ourselves. We need to realize that a lot of people might be experiencing what we are experiencing, and we're not othered from them. We're not just worse than every single person in the world, even though that might feel like that sometimes. And notice your emotions. So just think what happens when you start to feel a little bit down on yourself, when you start to doubt yourself. And that kind of goes into identifying your triggers. So this is a little bit more specific. Think about what kind of environments, what kind of people are around when you notice that imposter syndrome voice getting a little louder and getting a little overwhelming. That will help you to possibly avoid those situations if you need to, but also prepare yourselves for those kind of situations. And take ownership of your achievements. We need to celebrate those wins that we get. Anything that you do, anytime you overcome those fears, remember that that is a huge mental process. People will only see the end of it, but you need to remember that battle that it took for you to reach where you got. And I think a big part of this is do not self-prophesize. So like we said, remember those feelings you're having are not a fact. when you get those negative emotions, do not allow yourself to self-prophesize and think, yeah, I already think this, so let me just go on. And once you self-prophesize, you don't do those actions, you start to believe yourself. So this is the opposite of that. When you get those wins, prove it to yourself that you can overcome your fears. And I think the most important thing to overcoming anything, along with imposter syndrome, is continuous growth. So those coping mechanisms that we discussed today, as well as your own, think about what helps, what doesn't, and the application of those strategies. So reinforce the ones that work, get rid of the ones that don't, or the ones that are a little too hard for the moment. And most importantly, be realistic with yourself. A lot of us that have experienced imposter syndrome or anxiety or depression know that these feelings are probably going to be a lifelong experience for us, but the more we learn about it, the more that we overcome, the more that we're going to be able to deal with it in a better way. And also remember that regression is part of growth. So as you grow, there will be times where you might be doing worse and you'll think, why is this happening? I thought I already learned this. But as we talked about, growing is not a linear process, and you will always, and just keep moving forward. So thank you everybody for listening today, and I look forward to answering you guys' questions.
Thank you, Chitwan. That was a wonderful journey, and you know, as you said, everyone goes through the syndromes, and we have our own way to handle it, and maybe experience life, you know, circumstances, situations, things change, and we get more experience. We have kept best for the last. We have Dr. Judi, and Judi will be talking, or like, you know, what is psychological? You know, since day's morning we are talking about, you know, both phenomena. What exactly, how do you say the psychological in brief affect us?
Lovely. And so, you know what I'm actually going to do? And we do have this presentation. We've got a great table at the back with some information. And we have the most amazing team that works at the Psychologists Association of Alberta. So if you've gone to our table, you've probably met Gia. She might even be answering the phone one day. Chitwan was one of our summer students last year. We might have her back again this year. So we can provide all of this information. We have an amazing YouTube channel. But what I think actually is more important is that we get to benefit from what we've learned and the fact that we're here together. That we understand we are each other's relations, and we have this connection that we want some time to be able to foster and build. We want to get out of the sunlight while it's still here today. We want to be able to share stories, grow from those, and celebrate the future of our profession. So I'm not going to do my presentation. What I'd rather is that we go to either questions and answers live in this format, or you can get to skip ahead to get to hear the words of Councillor Joanne Wright, and then ask you to have a cup of tea, wander around, and speak to you one-on-one, whichever way that Sunil wants us to move forward with this, so that we can spend some time together and also enjoy our day and our family and our friends and all those wonderful things. So next steps are yours, Sunil.
Thank you, Judi. Thank you all the panelists who have given us a wonderful insight about the psychology and our life journey. Guys, just two housekeeping things you guys have before we move forward. Everyone has the feedback forms on the table, if you can give us, because that helps us to move forward and plan the other events also. It's anyone has any question, and then I would like to invite Joanne too. Sir, could you please come forward? If you come here, it will be easier so everyone can hear your question. Once the questions answer is done, we have tea, some snacks, silent auction is there too. Gia has wonderful swags, you know, from chapstick to different things. No? No. no chapstick because I took everything yesterday. Questions, we will take few questions and then we will invite Joanne. We have a vote for thanks for everyone too. Sir.
Thank you very much for organizing the program. I just want to thank all the speakers. Thank you so much for your time and your weight of knowledge. While the very gentleman was speaking, something came up to me so much. And the lady on green also mentioned the same thing again, which talks about sleep. And coupled with the fact that we are immigrants and when you're married, grief setting, even though you have child, you lose your sleep. So how do we get back those sleeps back in order to be able to function very well? And with that, you start to take care of your bills and everything. You are gradually losing sleep by the day, each day. I was just talking to my colleague, I said, I want to switch from working from night because I don't get enough sleep anymore. So you are prone to having an accident. So being an immigrant, how do you able to cope with all these things, knowing that bills, mortgages are out there? So how can you really be able to effectively manage these things? Thank you.
I guess I'll start, it is hard, and I as we've kind of laid out here, being new to an environment, being an immigrant also has its own stresses to it, whether they're financial or just trying to fit in or whatever. There's a balance to me. Let me tell a story. So people might remember Aesop's story of the goose that laid the golden egg, right? How many people remember the goose that laid the golden egg, or at least heard of it, okay? So basically the idea is this farmer, he's poor, and all he has is a goose, and he's usually go out and he'd take the egg and he'd go into town, he'd sell the eggs so he could buy other cheaper stuff to feed his family, right? One day he goes out and he finds a golden egg. And so he says, oh, this is amazing. He goes in, he sells it, he makes a bunch of money. Next day he goes out, another golden egg. He keeps making golden eggs and he's very happy. But he also gets impatient. He figures, you know what, I shouldn't have to wait to get a golden egg. I want them all now. So he takes his knife, goes and grabs the goose by the neck and cuts open the goose to get all the golden eggs. And all he gets is goose guts, right? We are the goose as immigrants, as an immigrant father, as an immigrant son or mother or daughter. We are the geese, but we're also the farmers. If we want to continue to get the golden eggs, whether it's being able to pay the mortgage or advance in the career or support the kids going to school, we have to feed the goose. We have to keep the goose alive because we are the center part of it. So as opposed to strategies, it's kind of a flippant mindset. It's a mindset change that we have to understand that the better, well, I've said it before, the better we feel, the better we do, right? And so we have to make sure that our personal maintenance takes a front and center role, because as a dad, if you're the head of the home, so to speak, the main breadwinner, if you go down, guess what happens to all the things and people you're looking after, right? And so it's a very weird kind of counterintuitive mind shift that has to happen to understand that we have to prioritize ourselves in order to do well. We do this with our vehicles, we do this with our instruments. We are the vehicles and we are the instruments for our family's survival and success as well as our own. So that's my answer to that.
Excellent question. Thank you for that and the answer. I just want to complete this with the mindset. I 100% agree. What you believe about yourself is what you are gonna be. Okay? So I invite you to challenge your belief constantly about who you are in a new country. Okay? And I invite you to connect with what you are good at and what is your passion. If you define that in the earliest stage of the process, believe me, you are not going to work 3 jobs. You are gonna be on the top of their interviews on the resumes because you are being you and doing the best of what you know to do. So choose to identify that in the early stage, and believe me, you will be well paid, sleeping better, and be successful in the process.
First of all, to the elder for giving us the information on the why we do that in the beginning of any course, because I wasn't sure why we did that. So when I heard her, I said, "Oh wow, the spirit is the reason we do that. It's not for anything else." So that was very good. Thank you. My question to you is, to you, Val. Sorry. My cousin is going through some grief. She lost her husband, and I've been trying to help her, but I can't help her. So I've been thinking, like, how do I help her?
Thank you for asking that, and I'm very sorry to hear about your cousin's loss. And I know it can be very challenging to say, how do I support and how do I give space at the same time? And it's about striking that balance. And something as broad as what can I do might not feel like enough, especially when we want to help. And I'm hearing that you are someone who really wants to help and that you want to be present there. My suggestion would be allowing yourself to just sit in that space. Often people just need our company, really, more than anything. And it goes back to that social connection piece. We instinctively, you care so much, you love your cousin, yes? And it's from that caring space, you want to help her, and whatever that may be, and it's saying, that can look like just sitting there, being present with her. It can come down to saying, would you like to share a story about your husband? Can I share a story about your husband? That permission giving is so valuable, and we're doing this, it's very subtle. What we're doing is we're giving them choice in a choiceless world. She didn't have choice over the situation. Her husband was taken away from her. What you're doing is you're giving her back that choice to talk about him, choice to share him with you. And that can be enough right now. And the other pieces come in the way of how can I support you in different means if that's something that you want to do. And I always say don't extend beyond your own means, because you have to put yourself first in this as well. You are also grieving your losses, so be mindful of those as well. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.
I wanted to make a comment on loss. I lost my husband to COVID, and he was one of the first ones to go. It's going to be 4 years now in March, and it was a very traumatic experience because we didn't see him. He was in the hospital for a week, and then he was buried and everything. And for 2 months, people were calling. Everybody wanted to be there, but we didn't want to talk to anybody. So many people were angry because people don't understand what the person is going through. So I was just talking to my children and to my siblings and nobody else. And 1 or 2 friends who had called, I told them, tell others I'm not ready to talk to anybody. So sometimes, let the grieving people grieve their own way. I used to hear my husband's voices. I used to feel him. And my brother is a psychiatrist in England. So I called him and I said, Bhai, am I going crazy that I'm hearing his voices? So he said, it's one of the way of grieving. Let it come, and share. Always share. The more you talk about it, the more you will heal. So like you want to do so much for your cousin, she might not need you calling her all the time. So just tell her whenever you are ready, I'm there for you. That is what a grieving person wants, that there is support around. And after 2-3 months, I called all the missed calls which I had. So give time, space. That's what I just wanted to share.
Sir.
So
my name is Tanveer, and thank you very much, Sunil, first of all. It's a wonderful forum you organized, and some very useful discussion by the panel here. So my question is that we discussed many symptoms here, the psychological symptoms. But do we have, or can we draw a line somewhere that we know that these symptoms are or can be an onset of a mental illness, and it would be consulted to a psychiatrist, not a psychologist? Thank you.
Yeah, I'd actually love you sharing that is your family member as well, who's a psychiatrist. We have tremendous overlap. That's part of our job, is to identify where that line is. When we meet people, we're trying to find out what strengths and support they need. Turns out not everyone needs a psychologist, actually, even. We have family, we have friends, we have community, we have support. And our job is to help people to know where they're at and what will be most useful. And if that's us, if that's the psychiatrist, most of us, when we're meeting with someone, and I'd say, I'm talking to Sunil, then I'll say, when's the last time you got a full physical? Because if he's very sad or he seems depressed, but he might have a thyroid condition or diabetes, I want to know that. I don't want to start giving him counseling for depression. We try and look at the body, the mind, the soul, and the spirit, and it's actually kind of our job is to be assessing all of those pieces. So it's an excellent question. Should have been in my presentation and you helped, so thank you.
And I also want to say, you know, a lot of times people see psychology in particular as either, I don't know, dating myself now, but One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, everybody familiar with that movie, yeah? Or Frasier, or they have certain ideas of what this is. And the idea is that you have to be broken or sick or something has to be wrong to see a psychologist or somebody else. But I would like you to think about it in terms of personal maintenance. Or better yet, like if you're going to the dentist, here's a good one. If you go to the dentist, you can't wait till your teeth are falling out and then go, right? That's not the best use of a dentist though. Best use of a dentist is to go regularly and make sure your teeth are healthy, and some people even go and do proactive like cosmetic dentistry to make themselves look even better. You can do the same thing in terms of your mindset with psychology. Like I said in my presentation, the best defense is a good offense. So if we're seeing a psychologist or a coach or somebody in this field who's helping us to be better, learning the techniques, learning the structure of the habits of highly healthy, happy, successful people, we're less likely to have bigger issues come along. But if we do, we can identify them more quickly, we have the language to talk about it, and we know how and where to get help. So I just want to plant that seed with everybody today.
Thank you, everybody. Judi.
I'm sorry, I cannot. I'm really atrocious with names.
My name is Chitwan.
Chitwan?
Okay. Question for you is basically imposter syndrome. I kind of consider that to some degree foundational to success. In that, as long as I don't believe I know it all, I have a path to success. And as soon as I get to that point where I know it all, I've reached the point where I am on a decline. Do you believe that's the kind of foundation that you would put through?
I definitely agree with that, and that's why I kind of want to reiterate that imposter syndrome is your friend. You're experiencing it for a reason because you're experiencing growth. The only thing with imposter syndrome is that a lot of the time these feelings are comorbid with anxiety or depression, and oftentimes that can somebody can feel very overwhelmed with these sorts of emotions. And as I said, these emotions are universal, and I think it's a great thing that you're having these human experiences. You feel nervous about something, that means that you're doing something that matters. So I do agree with you that I think it's just a part of growing. I think it's foundational to your success.
Thank you, everyone. I would like I would like to invite Joanne Wright, City Councillor. Joanne.
Thank you very much, Sunny. And I'll keep it brief as well. I just want to say hello. I am Joanne Wright, Ward Spomatabi City Councillor for Southeast Edmonton. So on behalf of all my colleagues on City Council, thank you very much, Sunny, for putting on the event and allowing us to learn, and thank you to all the panelists for sharing your information with us. I do just want to say that I think sort of everything that you've said has touched me in one way or another. You know, the winter blues, the grief, the imposter syndrome, and also even learning more about from the immigrant standpoint, because the demographics of Ward Spomatabi are such that I think they're all represented here, which is nice to know, because I've heard from a lot of residents that when it comes to psychology, they don't necessarily see themselves represented in the psychologists that are available to them. So I think we need even more supports and growth from every perspective. And like I said, it sort of seems to have touched me in every way, so my psychologist must really have her hands full when I meet with her. So, and very, very supportive as well, so it's great to have that. The city also does have a focus on mental health. If you just go to our edmonton.ca website and search mental health, you'll find many different resources. I do see that Nirmal has stepped away. He is one of our city social workers as well, so I was glad to see him up today. And yeah, I just think mental health, psychological health is as important as going to do your annual physical. Yeah, if we're all healthy, I think that prevents a lot of things from happening, a lot of the things that are happening in our city today. So thank you again for everybody. And Judi, I still have my pin that I won at the association's event on Thursday. Thank you very much.
Please do not go. We have a small token for everyone. Judi, could you please come, or if all the panelists can come so we can honor the elder. Elder, please. Can we have a picture now, Elder? Everybody.
We need to squeeze in sideways, everyone. Squeeze this.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Elder. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. For the association. So it's a small painting which basically talks about the emotions.
Wow, I'm just going to put the pretty ribbon there.
Right, you want to see?
We good?
Yeah. Okay. Talk to it. Yeah. You're not sure.
A wonderful symbolism with community partnership. We all build healthy communities together.
So is it syndromes or is it grieving? I think it's mixture of everything.
That's our
Yeah, some make something. Yeah, some make something.
And thank you, Suni, for everything.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you for coming on this beautiful Saturday. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Joanne. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.